You bought a $200 power station panel 3 years ago, and it is still sitting in your garage, still charging your battery every time the power drops. Meanwhile, your neighbor bought a panel from some all-capital letters brand on Amazon, and by the second summer, the film had peeled back like a sunburn, and the thing put out half its rated watts. That was not bad luck. I spent 35 years wiring backup power into people's homes, and I hauled more than a few dead solar panels out of garages where the owner swore it worked fine last year. What nobody knew, standing in that garage, holding a warped, yellowed panel that used to put out 200 watts, was that the panel had been failing slowly since the first hot summer. It just took 2 years to become obvious. So, today, we are ranking 10 portable panels that homeowners actually keep, the ones that end up bolted to a truck rack for a decade instead of dumped for $30 on Marketplace. And at the end, I will show you exactly which cheap ones are guaranteed to get thrown out, with the real reason why. How does one $200 panel end up bolted to a truck rack for a decade, while another one, rated for the exact same wattage, gets junked inside 2 summers? It comes down to 3 things nobody explains to you at checkout. In a few minutes, you will understand exactly why the number 5 spot on this list beats numbers 7 and 8 without even trying. Pillar 1 is the cell. Monocrystalline silicon runs 22 to 25% efficient and holds that number for years. Polycrystalline and the thin film flexible stuff you see marketed for vans starts lower and degrades faster, especially outdoors in real heat. Pillar 2 is the laminate, and this is the one nobody explains to you at the checkout. ETFE film, or a tempered glass face on the rigid units, lets through 90 to 95% of the light and shrugs off UV and heat for years. PET laminate, the cheap plastic film on budget flexible panels, absorbs moisture over time, and once it gets above about 45 degrees Celsius on a hot rooftop or truck bed, it starts to yellow, bubble, and separate from the cells underneath. That is called delamination, and it is not a maybe, it is a when. Pillar 3 is the connector. MC4 is the industry standard, the same plug you will find on rooftop solar, ground mount arrays, basically everything. If a panel uses MC4, you can run it into any power station with the right adapter, sell it to literally anyone with a solar setup, or replace a damaged cable for about $12. Proprietary connectors lock you into one brand's ecosystem, and if that brand changes its plug or discontinues the adapter, you own an expensive paperweight. Fail 2 of these 3 and a panel is headed for the trash heap. Pass all 3 and it just keeps working year after year, storm after storm. We are counting down from number 10, and I am telling you right now, the panel that ends up at number 1 is not the one you are expecting. Now let's get into it. Number 10. The BigBlue SolarPowa 100 ETFE. This is your entry point. Monocrystalline cells under a proper ETFE laminate, a single fold design light enough to carry with 2 fingers, and it typically runs somewhere under $100 depending on the sale. One owner on Walmart's review page put it plainly that a panel like this should last at least 10 to 15 years minimum left outside full time. That is not marketing copy. That is an owner who has had one sitting in the elements and watched it keep working. Outdoor Gear Lab called it the best value for a large panel in its entire testing lineup, and for under $100 with a real laminate on it instead of the cheap plastic film that verdict tracks. This is the panel you buy for your first power station and never think about again. For a while, that felt like the whole story, a budget panel that just quietly works. That is not the interesting part of this list. Number 9. The Goal Zero Boulder 100. Here is where I have to be honest with you about a panel that is genuinely well built and still a bad long-term bet for most people. The Boulder line uses tempered glass over an anodized aluminum frame. It is about as rugged as a portable panel gets, and Goal Zero backs it with a 2-year warranty. The problem is the connector. Goal Zero uses a proprietary 8mm barrel plug, not MC4, and one Best Buy reviewer said it about as bluntly as I would, that you should not buy these unless you already own a Goal Zero battery, because that connector works on nothing else. Goal Zero has also discontinued several of its own adapters over the years, so you end up with a panel built like a tank that only fits one brand's garage. Great hardware, terrible flexibility. That is why it sits at number 9 instead of higher. And that wasn't even the part that got people angry in the DIY solar forums. Owners have spent years asking how to get rid of that connector entirely and swap in something standard. Anyone buying into that closed ecosystem today will look back on this decision in 5 years and wish they had picked a panel with a plug that works everywhere instead. Number 8. The Anker Solix PS200. 200 watts, monocrystalline, 23% efficiency, and an IP67 rating, meaning it can handle a serious downpour without flinching. It ships with an MC4 cable and an MC4 to XT60 adapter in the box, which tells you Anker built this thing to play nice with other brands from day one instead of trying to trap you. 4 kickstand angles, 30, 40, 50, and 80 degrees, so you can actually chase the sun instead of guessing. 2-year warranty on the panel itself. This is a panel that shows up at outdoor gear stores like B&H Photo, at Home Depot, and at dedicated off-grid retailers, because it earns its shelf space there instead of only surviving on Amazon algorithm luck. Before we keep climbing this list, it is worth pausing on price per watt for a second, because that is where the real markup games happen in this category. The EcoFlow bifacial panel we are about to cover works out to roughly $1.27 per real watt at its current price. The Bluetti panels in this class run closer to $1.75 per watt, and the cheap, no-name panels flooding Amazon often look like a bargain on the sticker, sometimes 50 cents per watt or less, right up until you find out that watt was never real to begin with. Price per watt only means something if the watt is honest. This is where the story takes a turn worth slowing down for, because the next 4 panels all pass the 3-pillar test, and the differences between them come down to price, weight, and exactly how they are built. Number 7. The EcoFlow 220-watt bifacial. EcoFlow did something different here. Instead of ETFE fabric, this panel uses a one-piece tempered glass face. The same idea as a rigid rooftop panel shrunk down into something you can fold and carry. It is IP68 rated, up to 25% efficient, and it is bifacial, meaning the backside catches reflected light too, in theory, adding output when you set it up over snow, sand, or a light-colored surface. This panel launched with a price tag between $549 and $649, and has since dropped hard, showing up new for around $200, which works out to roughly $1.27 per watt, a genuinely strong price for a glass-faced panel. I want to give you the honest caveat here though. One verified buyer on eBay reported getting about 135 watts out of this 220-watt panel on a perfectly sunny day. Bifacial gains are real, but only over reflective ground, not on your average lawn. Judge the front side output. Treat the back side as a bonus. Number 6. The Bluetti PV350. This one earns its spot as a workhorse. Monocrystalline, ETFE laminated, 23.4% efficient, MC4 only, no proprietary nonsense. It typically runs between $599 and $799 depending on the sale, and the Gadgeteers review praised the build quality directly. Functionally, it will take a Bluetti AC180 power station from empty to full in about 2.5 hours in good sun. Now, I will say a forum regular on DIY Solar Forum pointed out that portable panel pricing runs steep compared to rigid rooftop panels, noting he paid around $65 for a single rigid 315-watt panel. He is not wrong on the math. You are paying a real premium for the folding hinge and the fabric case. But if you own a mid-size power station and actually want to see it charge fast without hauling a rigid panel around, this is the one that does it without asking you to buy into anyone's walled garden. All 4 of the last panels are solid, technically excellent, thoroughly vetted. None of them is the panel I would tell my own family to buy first. That one is next. Number 5. The Jackery SolarSaga 200. Bifacial TopCon monocrystalline cells, ETFE laminate, IP68, which exceeds the industry standard IP67 rating most panels carry, up to 25% rated efficiency. And here is the part that actually matters. In independent testing, this panel delivered somewhere between 90% and 97% of its rated wattage in full sun. That sounds like a small detail. It is not. Most manufacturers rate panels under lab conditions you will never see in your backyard, so real-world output usually lands well under the sticker number. The SolarSaga 200 is one of the rare panels that gets close to honest. Jackery backs it with a 3-year standard warranty, extendable to 5 years if you register it, and it weighs somewhere around 15 to 17 pounds depending on the exact retail variant. Price has come down from a $700 launch to somewhere between $400 and $500 depending on the sale, which is a real drop, and it means you are paying less money for a panel that is more honest about what it actually delivers. This is the panel I put dead center on this list on purpose. If you already own a Jackery power station and need to add serious wattage without gambling on real-world output, this is the one I would put in my own driveway. If you are finding this useful, hit subscribe. I cover backup power and solar gear like this every week. No affiliate hype, just the honest verdict. Enter the resale question, because that is really what this whole video is about. A panel that hits close to its rated output year after year is a panel nobody has a reason to sell. A panel that quietly underperforms from day one is a panel someone eventually gets frustrated with and lists for whatever they can get. Number 4. The Bluetti PV200, now succeeded in current production by the SP200L. The PV200 built a reputation as the value pick in the 200-watt class. Monocrystalline, ETFE, 23.4% efficient, and at 16.1 pounds, it is the lightest panel in its wattage class on this whole list, MC4 only. One reviewer at the Power Pick called it the best value in 200-watt portable solar, noting it runs a full $100 less than the Jackery SolarSaga 200. Next Pit's review flagged one real downside though, that it has no built-in eyelets for hanging it on a fence or rack, so you are propping it with the kickstand or improvising. The SP200L that replaced it in Bluetti's current lineup runs around $349, which works out to about $1.75 per watt, uses a D7909 primary connector with an XT60 adapter included, and keeps the same monocrystalline ETFE formula that made the PV200 worth owning. If your power station is a Bluetti and you want the lightest, cheapest 200-watt panel that still passes all three pillars, this is it. This next brand's actual value proposition gets buried under flashier marketing from the bigger names, which is exactly why it deserves a slot here. Number 3. The Renogy 200-watt E.FLEX. This is the best pure value on the entire list. N-type monocrystalline cells rated up to 25% efficiency, IP65, under 14 pounds, MC4 plus a built-in 60-watt USB-C port and a USB-A port for smaller devices. It regularly sells for somewhere between $175 and $220, and I have seen it discounted close to 30% off list price during sales events. Owners report real-world output in the 150 to 160 watt range on a 200-watt panel, which is a respectable, honest number for the price. Outdoor Gear Lab named it the overall best portable solar panel for camping in their testing, and the Power Pick flatly called it the best value in portable solar for this year. Renogy backs the foldable line with a 2-year warranty. If price per reel delivered watt is your priority, this beats everything above it on the list. Number 2, the Anker Solix PS400. 400 watts, monocrystalline, up to 23% efficiency, IP67, MC4 standard. Anker markets a 1.5 times faster charging claim on the monocrystalline cells compared to older polycrystalline 400-watt panels, and functionally it delivers. One quick note on the warranty here, because I want to keep this accurate. Anker advertises a 5-year full device warranty when this panel is bundled with certain Solix generators, but the standalone panel sold on its own commonly carries a 2-year warranty, so check which one you are actually buying before you assume 5 years. Warranty aside, this is the panel for someone running a larger power station who needs serious wattage without hauling around a 2-piece rigid array. If you are covering a whole home battery bridge charge or keeping a big power station topped off through a multi-day outage, this is your 400-watt option that still checks every box on the keeper test. Everything on this list so far has earned its spot, but the clock was already ticking on the panel I have not mentioned yet, the one that outsells every other panel on this list combined. Number 1, the Jackery SolarSaga 100. This panel launched back in 2019, and it is still in production today, which alone should tell you something. Monocrystalline cells, ETFE laminated fabric case, IP65 on the original, with newer variants pushing to IP68, and a listed efficiency up to 23.7% using IBC cell technology. It runs about $249, weighs under 12 pounds, and passed 17 separate IEC durability tests, along with a TUV IEC certification. Here is the number that actually earns it the top spot. According to sales data reported by Frost & Sullivan, through January of this year, Jackery ranked #1 globally by cumulative sales volume of 100-watt consumer-grade portable solar panels, measured across nearly 8 years, from 2018 through September of last year. That is not a marketing claim about this quarter. That is roughly 8 years of homeowners buying this exact panel and, more importantly, not replacing it. One reviewer who folded and unfolded the hinges over 150 times across 6 months reported the hinges still felt solid with zero looseness. This is the least expensive panel on this entire list, and it is also the one people own the longest and are least likely to ever list for sale. That is not a coincidence. When something this cheap, this proven, and this durable exists, there is simply no reason to trade up unless your power needs grow. That is what holding its value actually looks like in this category. Not appreciation, just zero reason to let go of it. Now, let's talk about the panels that do not make this list, because understanding why they fail is just as useful as knowing which ones last. The biggest offender is the generic PET laminated flexible panel, the kind you find under a dozen different all-capital letters, brand names on Amazon for $40 or $50, less than anything on this list. PET laminate has a high water vapor transmission rate, meaning moisture works its way in over time, and once that panel sits above roughly 45 degrees Celsius, which is not hard to hit on a truck bed or rooftop in summer, the film starts to yellow, bubble, and peel away from the cells underneath. DIY solar forum veterans describe destroying stacks of these things, watching the cells crack easily or the output collapse after a single hot summer. That's not a typo, by the way. A single summer. And this is exactly where the cheap per-watt trap shows up in real life. Buyers on forums and eBay have reported panels advertised at 120 watts only, delivering around 90 watts new out of the box before any degradation even starts. You are not just buying a panel that will fail. You are buying a panel that was never honest about its output on day one. Thin film and CIGS flexible panels have a similar problem. They market well because they are lightweight and genuinely flexible, but multiple long-term users in van living and off-grid communities report the same delamination pattern showing up within a year or two of regular outdoor use. People shopping this category think they have seen the worst of it once they hear about delamination. They have not. All Powers, a brand that sells panels compatible with several major power station brands, holds a Trustpilot score of 1.5 out of 5 across 78 reviews. One verified owner reported buying 3 200-watt monocrystalline panels in 2022 to charge a Bluetti power station. All 3 failed within 2 years. One of them caught fire, and somehow it gets worse. Multiple other reviewers describe the advertised 5-year warranty simply not being honored, with support routed through email-only channels based overseas. I am not telling you that to scare you off solar. I am telling you because a company that will not stand behind its own warranty has already told you everything you need to know about how it built the product in the first place. Let's be straight about Resale too, because the title of this video says These panels hold their value, and I want to be honest about what that actually means. These are not stocks. Jackery's own guide on used solar panels states plainly that used panel value typically runs 10 to 60 cents per watt, meaning a 100-watt panel in decent shape is worth somewhere between $10 and $60 used, not close to what you paid. Even manufacturer-certified refurbished units follow that pattern. A refurbished Jackery SolarSaga 100 commonly lists around $150 against a $249 original price, and a refurbished Bluetti PV350 has sold for around $399 against a launch price near $600. That is somewhere around 60 to 67% retained, and that is the best case scenario, backed by a manufacturer warranty. Private sales run lower than that. What holds value here is not the resale price. It is the fact that a well-built panel keeps working for a decade, so you never have a reason to go shopping for its replacement. That is the real win, not profit. Just one less thing that breaks. One more thing worth knowing before you buy anything on this list. None of the major brand foldable panels we just covered are sitting under a safety recall right now. The recalls that have actually hit this broader category this year targeted solar power banks with swelling lithium cells, not foldable charging panels, which is a real distinction and one more reason to stick with the brands that have been around long enough to be tracked by regulators in the first place. Jackery, for its part, is not slowing down either. The company expanded its SolarSaga lineup this year with prime, light, and air variants, plus a 500-watt bifacial panel, which tells you the company you are buying into today is still investing in parts, support, and compatibility for the panel sitting in your garage, not winding the product line down. One safety note before we wrap this up, because I would be doing you a disservice as an electrician if I skipped it. Every power station has a maximum solar input rating, both voltage and wattage, printed right in the manual. Wiring two panels in series can push your voltage past that limit and damage the charge controller inside your power station, so check that number before you daisy chain anything. And if a storm rolls in with lightning while your panel is set up outside, unplug it and bring it in. These panels are weatherproof against rain. They are not designed to survive a direct strike, and neither is the expensive power station on the other end of that cable. So here is where we land. The panel you should never sell is not the fanciest one on the shelf. It is the one built with real cells, a laminate that does not fall apart in the heat, and a connector that will still be useful 10 years from now, regardless of what brand you switch to next. Buy on those three things, not on the biggest wattage number in the listing, and you will end up owning gear you never have to think about twice.